Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. So now you get to hear me for real this time as opposed to the video from Bill. So yeah, we got again a lot to talk about a bit. So, and I know everybody's probably wondering like what to do about the Bagel Mania assignment. So I do this every year. I do different variations of it. It's actually been something that actually I've even spoken to the Rutgers administration for, and they're like, "Good job, good idea." I don't know. I'm not trying to brag about it. I'm just saying it actually like, and especially like now in days of AI, it's almost impossible to use AI on this. Um, but again, the second half of the semester is supposed to deal. We're dealing with more of the reporting end of things. Okay, and there's a reason why we do all this is because we need to we need to take a press release that we're given, which is probably the most common way reporters get news these days from a press release. Something that a press release is written by people, spokespeople, public relations people, public information officers who usually typically work for like government, police, and it's a form of a communication to try to control the message, which is fine. I mean, that's their job. Try to control the message so that people don't look bad, that sort of thing. Okay, so that they can represent themselves in the best way possible. But the media, but the audience for that the person who writes those press releases is the media. Okay, because we're the ones that actually disseminate the information to the public. So what we have to do is we have to take that information that we're given, however messy it may be, and however messy it's written or written in a way it is useless to us, and we need to get it out to the public and get it to them so they can understand it and they can relate to it and they can appreciate the fact that we're putting out a story that they care about. Okay, because the press release they sent us, this Bagel Media Company, made up, I know, but whatever. It's not about caring about the public. It's about covering your ass. Covering your ass when something not good happens. Give away some hints here. Cover away some things when happen, something not so great happens, and it's made hurt or harm your company. The what your company's about, what your company represents. Might hurt the reputation of the company. Okay. Um, and that's their job, and there's no scandal in that. Okay, but that's just how it is. That's just what they have to do. Your job, though, is to protect the public. Okay, and basically let them know what the hell is going on. Okay. So let's go over that release a bit. It connects to everything that I'm going to be talking about today, and the chapters that I've actually asked you to read, which are chapters 17 and 19. Okay. So here is the Megalomania press release. Okay. All right, so it's written again for the day that it's due. So you guys should pretend. I mean, I'm figuring like people always finish up things on the last day, whatever, it's fine. So you could basically say, like, today or whatever you write this, it's a current thing that's actually happening. Okay. And what you have to do is, and then I gave away this big strong hint, of course, Megalomania. Oops, what happened there? Megalomania, the world's leading provider of entertainment, announced that it's performing an office of chief executive in a broad restructuring of management roles. Okay. So I've told you already that this is not the lead. Now, I've had people already say to me and write to me, which is fine, say to me, is this the lead? The restructuring? It's not the lead. That's like one of the biggest, strongest hints I can give, but the whole idea is to show you that they present information to an audience in the way they want it to be presented, so they can represent themselves well and cover their own ass. What the reporters do is they save people's asses, the public's ass, okay, and basically trying to dig out in here something in here that actually matters more to them, okay. And what I was telling, I asked people, I brought this up during my in-person classes, and I asked people, I said, okay, so you know, I asked people like, where do they shop? What companies? Because you think about the company's reputation. People said Kohl's, Macy's, that sort of thing. So I said to them, okay, so think of this, okay? Let's say Kohl's goes through a restructuring with an office of chief executive. And you go into Kohl's to shop. Do you really give a crap when you go to buy buy a pair of pants, or a shirt, or a pantsuit, whatever, that they had it at restructuring? You don't. Okay. You just don't. I mean, what I try to tell people is like, maybe substitute a company you know. I mean, I've used Disney in the past. I know they're like really big and huge and that sort of thing, but you know, maybe a little bit too big for this. But think about like, I mean, I've asked people like also like, have they ever been to Disney World? What's Disney World? Disney World is a very wholesome place, you know, that where like all good things happen and blah 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 and everything's all one way and all this stuff. And so something happens, you know, somebody leaves a company and they leave it for bad reasons. Oops, another hint. And you know, and you know what? It won't kill Disney, but there might be people who might like just say, like, you know what, I don't like what they're doing anymore. You know, there's gonna be people like that, you know, and they're gonna stop shopping there. And you know what? It won't kill Disney, it won't put them out of business, but maybe the business will go down. It'll harm their stock price. They'll be affected. Okay. That happened to McDonald's. McDonald's was smashing, you know, every year, big time profits, the whole thing. Right around the time the documentary, almost about 20 years ago, Super Size Me came out, then actually started to lose profits and even lose money, from what I understand, because people suddenly realized what the hell that they were eating, what the hell they were eating was not good, you know. So that's what happens, you know. I mean, like it didn't sink McDonald's, but it actually what it did was it actually caused McDonald's to remake itself. And if you've noticed, that McDonald's actually tries to look like a low rate Starbucks now. So they got rid of their play places and all that stuff. Not all of them, but so that's what they try to do. They try to emphasize their coffee now because they figure, well, coffee can't kill you, you know, or give you arteriosclerosis. So anyway, so anything little thing like that can harm a company, you know. Another example I drew up is, you know, way back when, 1989, there was a big oil spill. You may know, heard about, in Alaska, killed a lot of wildlife. It was the Exxon Valdez spill. It was shown that basically the driver was negligent and all this stuff, and then Exxon kind of didn't really do enough to clean it up. And you know what? Look, Exxon's still here. People care about it. I think in a way though that that company has never been the same since in some ways. I mean, that was the company that was founded by, I guess, John D. Rockefeller. It was Standard Oil. It was called SO, get it? Standard Oil. Then they changed it to Exxon in like the early 70s. And so, you know, I mean, people don't really like usually give a crap about where they shop for gasoline. They just go to get gas, and especially if they're running low. But you know, there was a time there for at least a year in 89 where people would actually say, if I'm low on gas, I'm going to drive right past Exxon. Okay. So I get didn't sink Exxon, but for probably a good year there, hurt business. You know, that's a story. That's a big deal, you know. And they had a restructuring back then and all that stuff and changed their company, but that wasn't the big deal. The big deal was that they were probably losing money because of this big spill that harmed their reputation. Okay. Their wholesome reputation. Okay. So what you have to do is here now this company isn't necessarily like a wholesome company. I get that, but you know what we're going to find out like goes beyond the pale. Okay, and it's all based on one thing that happened: Mark Bronson resigning. Oop. And you know, and because of bad conduct. Oh, and then you know, and then basically from there, you need to go to Bill and you need to find out really he why there was a change. Okay. And what you're going to find out is that basically, um, this is an even bigger story because some of the stuff that happened was pretty grotesque. Okay. And actually, like I said, it was actually based on a real thing that happened. Okay. So megalomania, you got the restructuring in the first graph. Next graph, you got the company change. Yeah, I know baseball players. Somebody said, is the effect of their baseball players of the lead? No. Okay, that's not a big deal. Okay, what this guy wants to do, change the culture, some other stuff he wants to do to change the culture. Um, our culture will not change, maybe, but at the same time, which is weird. Okay, and they asked for the receive the resignation of Mark Bronson. You know, circumstances around his conduct were inconsistent with the code of conduct. And you know, they reflected poorly on Bronson's judgment. So, you know, when shit like that happens, it's like, you know, it's not good, you know, and it can shake a company's reputation and they could lose money, you know. at least even a short while, and it's still news. Okay, so what you need to do, but but the thing is though, it's kind of like the Easter Bunny thing. I mean, I keep going back to that. It looks a little silly, but now you see it like in kind of like in a more expanded view. That like when you leave out a little thing, you know, it's not, you're basically not telling the whole story and doing the public a disservice. Okay, you're not putting things in the right context. What happened here, really? Like, okay, big hint. What did Bronson do? You know, it was not good. It was not good, if not illegal. Okay. So that's what you need to find out from Bill. And what Bill's going to do, he's going to supply you with two documents. I have them myself. You can contact him next week in case I think he thought this time was only 1 week. It's actually 2. So you can contact him after this is posted for within next week. And then he actually already talked to him about it. He said he could. So anyway, um, basically he'll send you an Excel spreadsheet that basically is a voucher that lists all the bad things that happen, and then you report that, and that makes that even a bigger story than what it is. Okay, when you'll see it. Okay, and then there's a Q&A, essentially represents the company's position on stuff, so that'll help fill in materials. And I say like you have to contact them twice, really just at least once probably could do it, but what I'm saying is you probably should contact them twice, not necessarily must have. Okay. All right. But so then we're kind of entering an area where like, all right, so you don't always like get information from people, when you're doing a story like directly from people. A lot of times you get it from, especially now in the digital age of the last 30 years, you have to actually like get documents and stuff like that. And now we're entering the world where actually do even a little investigation. Okay. So what do you do when you get documents? Well, you get a document, you report the information that's on the document that's relevant to the story, and then you attribute it to the documents according to a document divided by megalomania. And that's it. Okay. So it should be attributed the information you get. Actually, what you're going to get is a voucher. Okay. Voucher. Well, people ask me what a voucher is. Well, here's a big giveaway, a big hint. When you actually like spend money, okay, and you call it work related, you have to fill out what's called a voucher. Okay. And you get reimbursed for those items. Okay. So it's like basically usually you need to attach receipts to it and things like that. Maybe you've experienced this before. So anyway, when you throw like a wild party and you try to charge it to the company, oops, basically that's probably not a good thing. It's not really expending your expenses the right way, right? So that could get you into trouble. Okay. So you're violating a code of conduct, perhaps. Okay. So that's why bad stuff's listed on the voucher. Okay. All right. You need to like, so I'm not saying you throw this out of the story entirely, but what this needs to do, it needs to go down in the story. This crap needs to go lower in the story. Don't forget the inverted pyramid. Okay. The less important stuff goes to the bottom. The most important stuff goes to the top. Okay. All right. And like I said, one thing happened that basically caused everything to change, and the stuff that happened, the big change happened because of bad behavior, right? And then it led to this restructuring. So that's why that's the order you should follow. I mean, that's the thing about journalism, okay, is that I know a lot of people who take these classes and everything from understand. Actually, it's interesting. I just found this out too. Bill asked the question in my in-person classes: how many people are going to journalism? Nobody raised their hands. That's fine. But you're going to be like going into fields where maybe you're going to have to actually almost follow some sort of a journalistic format. Presentations that you do for companies, stuff like that, are essentially that. When you give like a pitch or something like that, it's essentially like a journalism story. Okay. One of the first things you have to say is you have to hook them, and you have to tell them, this is what I'm presenting, and it's amazing. And you tell them, I was gauging myself. I was like, look at the movie Elf. Okay. And basically what they were doing there, they're pitching like storybooks and toy books and stuff like that. I mean, that's exactly what you do. And then the first thing you do is you got to grab them, you got to hook them. Okay. It's the same thing here. That's why there's such a similarity to this in advertising and marketing and stuff like that. Okay. But the big marketing thing here is actually is selling an idea, selling a story, okay? All right, so let's go over the book a bit. I'm gonna talk about the armored robbery case because I think that's maybe one of the best examples where like you're given information initially, but not all there is there, okay? And you have to actually go out and find it and look for it, okay? But first, I have to start with like, where do we come up with these situations where we're given information from public relations agencies, public information offices, spokespeople, and when are they used, and what areas of life, and what areas of reporting are they typically used? And like they have this chapter 17 here, which talks about public affairs reporting. And so this talks about a lot about like crime and accidents and what you see, like what happens with like crime and accidents. And they happen like all the time, unfortunately. But like sometimes there's like things like extenuating circumstances that happen that, show that maybe like there's a lot worse things that happen here that meets the eye. Okay. Maybe there was like a driver was at fault that shouldn't, maybe he or she could have done something differently or something like that. And you have to kind of peel away at the surface. That's what I say is like this. Now we're actually going to be dealing with like peeling away the surfaces of the information we're given and seeing if there's actually more information there. Okay. The first assignment many newspaper reporters have is the police beat. Beginning television and radio journalists might have more varied assignments covering crimes, blah, 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 accidents. Okay. Basically, and how you're typically given this, and actually I meant to call this up too. A lot of times when you're given information actually by police departments, and that's probably like the number one place where you get press releases, is you're actually given, let's see, Point Pleasant. All right, so here's my old hometown. I showed this to people the other day. You're given like information like hiring, usually a lot of stuff is kind of benign, but interesting, but you don't need to know stuff. You kind of need to know stuff. All fireworks festival rescheduled. I actually showed them this one right here. This was interesting. Friendly reminder. That's very nice. Make us feel good. Lock your vehicles in homes. There has been a recent uptick in burglaries and motor vehicle thefts in surrounding towns, both in Ocean and Monmouth counties. Residents are reminded to lock your vehicles, remove keys, fobs, and valuables. In addition, suspects have been known to access unlocked doors to residents in an attempt to locate vehicle keys. Point Pleasant Police Department. This is the Point Pleasant Borough, by the way, not the beach. So this is actually not on the beach. It's the town to the west of Point Pleasant Beach. It's where I grew up. It's more like Brick, town of Brick, or Lakewood. The Point Pleasant Police Department continually monitors incidents that occur in surrounding jurisdictions in an effort to keep people reporting. So anyway, that's very important that they're putting this information out. It's very good of them. Thank you very much. But you know what do you want to really know there? Okay. As a human being, as a reader, as a resident, you get enough information out of there, One of the big questions I asked is, and here's something to think about for a second, like, what was like the first thing you'd really want to know when you read that? You think about it? Probably, is it happening next door? Is it happening in my neighborhood? I want to know if my neighborhood's being targeted. Okay, that's left out of here. Now, look, it's a kind of a two-sided coin here. Okay, you basically have to deal with this whole situation. The cops probably don't want to alert people to a neighborhood where people are stealing stuff. Okay, because then people will think like, oh, criminals will probably think like, oh, that's probably an easy place to steal from, or maybe they got a lot of valuables there and blah blah blah. I think the public's right to know kind of outweighs that a bit here. That's my personal opinion. It's a judgment call you have to make. And despite all that, if there's burglaries happening on my street, I want to know. So that's why you have to like go back or go to another source. Or it says here, like it says, develop police sources. Excuse me. Okay. Trying to go beyond the press release and trying to like find maybe people in the department, or not only that, but people who maybe like talk about the department. They show up at like town meetings. That maybe they're even like residents or something like that, and they have information that maybe the police don't, or maybe they know stuff that the police want to keep secret or something like that. That's why you got to really kind of expand your circle beyond what you're given in the press release, and find out what's really going on. And then there's also other stuff, the other documents you can get, kind of like what Bill's going to give you. Okay. Like they actually, did you know after they arrest somebody, they give you a police report. Usually looks like crap, right? But actually, what they do is they develop a narrative, usually like not too long after that. And one of them is called an affidavit. And actually, those are very interesting to read. And you can ask for them in their public record. And sometimes police department gives you crap about it because they're like, oh, it's an investigation. But actually, like, it's not harmful actually to put out stuff that basically may show motive, or something like that. Like an Easter bunny, like chocolate, leading to, somebody being almost murdered. Autopsy reports, medical exam reports, just simple arrest reports, police blotter, that's actually where they usually list all the crimes and everything happening in your neighborhood. So there are documents out there, and a lot of times they're even on the web. You can find them, and that sort of thing. Okay. Of course, it talks about respecting victims, and you want to be conscious of that too. But if there's a crime that's happened, you want to get down to the bottom of it. You want to know who's involved, why it happened, that sort of thing. And I'll get to that more specifically in a minute. It talks about like other things that happen, like that are public agencies, like local government. I talked about in my in-person classes again about like, hey, they raise taxes under people's noses all the time and everything. People don't know because they don't go to the freaking meetings, And now, and yes, the media has changed, and there's a lot more media opportunities out there. But in other ways, the legacy media, the traditional media, has changed. So like a lot of them are not covering like the towns meetings like they used to, so you don't maybe necessarily know about your taxes going up and having to pay more money for stuff, or even things like down the Jersey Shore, the beach fees going up and stuff like that. People walk up on the boardwalk and say, I paid what? At Ocean Grove, New Jersey, they're like, do what now? So there's stuff like that that's going on. I always talked about the school district thing. It's funny because it was almost like, I'm being a little cynical here. It's like always like a little bit of a dog and pony show with these school districts. They bring in people who like are on the honor roll, or like they won some track championship or something like that. And usually that's like the very first part of a meeting, right? But then like I always love it when they say this. They say like, okay, anybody who doesn't want to stay, you can leave now. They say this during the meeting, right? Maybe they should stay, because what happens after that presentation with the Girl Scouts is going to be more important and maybe even more exciting than the presentation with the Girl Scouts. I'm sorry, nothing wrong with the Girl Scouts, okay? I'm just saying that they're going to freaking raise your taxes. I've seen it happen, okay? So you got to peel away at the surface. That's why I'm doing this megalomania assignment. Peel away at the press release. Find out what really is going on, okay? These chapters, and then 17 and then 19 actually goes into journalism, public relations. It speaks to that relationship right there. What do public relations do? Bill's been executive for a long time. He's done that kind of stuff. And again, their job is to basically report the information and kind of let you know what's going on. Now, a lot of like police departments, like I told you before, have that kind of thing going on, where they hire a public information officer, or maybe they're not able to do that. So what they'll do is actually train their officers to do it, because what they typically do is they put out these police reports that basically, again, are like typically unreadable or written in a language. It's not a narrative, not a news story. I mean, they're not going to do your job. They're not going to do your job for you. I'm sorry. Okay. That's not their job. The job is just to basically put it in a report and investigate it. Okay. And maybe come to some sort of conviction or arrest or whatever. Okay. Well, actually the courts do the convictions. I want to direct you to a case that happened a few years back involving a man, but 3 years back, involving a man by the name of Ahmed Aubrey. And he's right here, victim. Okay, so here's a matter involving somebody who, and actually I need to call up another thing here. I apologize for that. Here's a man who was running through a neighborhood. He was jogging around like a lot like I do. I actually jog and run through neighborhoods all the time. Okay. And this man was doing that peacefully. The You'll see it in the video, okay? What happened was, a few people jumped out, if you don't remember this. They got in a truck, had guns, claimed that they thought this man was involved in arrests, in a burglaries that happened in a house, small time burglary stuff, but she wasn't. They went out and armed robbery was shot dead. And the people with the guns were white and armed robbery was black. Okay. So what you were given essentially was, and I'm not necessarily blaming the police department for this either, okay? But they're given information and they could do the best that they could do it, I guess, But it's interesting when you do read the narrative, because at least 3 people ended up being convicted out of this. But when you actually first read the initial police report in this, there's only 1 suspect. That's interesting. How did that happen? 3 people were convicted of felony murder out of this. Felony murder, okay? But 1 suspect initially. Witnesses. This guy, by the way, is doing life. This guy's doing life. He's identified as a witness. A witness, right? But when you read the narrative, you can see why they thought that way, okay? On Sunday, February 23rd, 2020, this is what they wrote in the police report. I responded to police officers at Titia Drive on Holmes Drive in reference to shots fired. While on road, I advised that there were shots fired and a male was on the ground bleeding out. A short time later, I was advised that the male on the ground was deceased. Upon arrival, I observed Officer Minshew setting up a perimeter. I began speaking with Greg McMichael, who was a witness to the incident. McMichael stated that there were several break-ins in the neighborhood, and this man supposedly was caught on surveillance video. Okay. So anyway, he said that he was in front yard, and he said the saw as a suspect, I say that with quotes, was hauling ass down Steer Drive, and then they went after him with a 357 Magnum, which is a very powerful shotgun. All right. McMichael said that he and Travis got in a truck and drove down Steer Drive. McMichael stated that they arrived at Steer Drive, Holmes Drive, where the identified man was coming down. Okay. Michael said that he jumped into the line of the truck and Travis continued. Okay, McMichael stated that the identified male said, "Shut stop, we want to talk to you." McMichael stated that he pulled up beside the male. Travis exited the truck. McMichael stated that the identified male violently attacked him. All these kind of words, violent attack, suspect, all this stuff. And this man, who was considered the burglary suspect, was shot dead. That's what it says here. Okay. All right. Second shot. Fire shot and then the second shot. Okay. Like I said, that the male fell face down on the pavement. Okay. That's all we knew at the time. Okay. And I mean, can you really blame police reporter? You can really blame reporters for when they're actually, and I have to call this up too, when they get this story, the very first thing that's all they got. That's all they can see. And I'm sorry, I meant to call this other one and it's going really slow. Okay, there we go. Okay. The Brunswick News was the local paper. Okay. And the Brunswick News was for first story was a very short story. Okay. And actually, I'm not going to blame these people because these people ended up breaking out the whole story apparently. And I'll show you what happened. Getting really slow here. Anyway, but they basically said was a man was shot dead, and there were people there. Here we go. Police investigating a shooting death at Tia Shores. Police are investigating the shooting death of a 25-year-old Brunswick man Sunday afternoon in Tia neighborhood in southern Glenn County. Armed robbery died on the scene, 1:08 p.m. I think this is literally like 4 paragraphs. It's not all coming up for some reason. I don't know why. But it's more than 2 paragraphs. I guess it's because it's just taking forever for the load. Anyway, so that's pretty much about what they had anyway. So I think the rest of it was just basically the police investigated and all that stuff. This is why we cannot just rely on press releases and then just stop the story and end it right there. Okay. Because actually there was an article written, and I just called it up, about how this paper right here, they were the ones that actually got the ball rolling. Even though they printed out that initial story, they said, okay, well, maybe there's more to be had here. So the first stories were published on the newspaper's website that he died. But then the next day, the day after this story was published, this particular reporter, Larry Hobbs, managed to get Arbery's name from the corner and included it in a few more lines in a follow-up story. Then he wrote about the close involvement of district attorney's office investigators, because the guys who basically the guys actually were actually like the so-called witnesses who later became suspects who were involved in the shooting and the killing. They basically were like ex-law enforcement people apparently, or something like that. So anyway, so they, they knew people. They even showed like one of the crime scene things where like the person who ended up serving life in term life in prison was actually kind of buddying up with one of the police officers on the scene. So when they started actually coming out with stuff, yeah, we'll be getting to that in a bit. When they started coming out with stuff, okay, that's when, like, talk about credibility and that sort of thing. That's when, like, when somebody's out there and they see like stuff happening when they're actually like printing stuff that, not everything here that meets the eye. Not everything here is in the police report that should. Then people they start developing like a moral compass, or maybe people try to save their asses and they leak stuff. I think, and then this was a video story. Okay, a video got leaked or got out somehow. Okay, and there was probably another guy in a truck when you're going to see, who either probably developed the moral compass and felt like something needed to be done, or B, made a deal with prosecutors and felt like he wanted to save his ass and get out of prison. Okay, so yeah, but you'll see that actually when you actually watch this video, that you'll see like there was something that was given away that showed there was more than one person involved in this. Oh geez, hold on. I hope you can hear me. I got a pinwheel. Okay, I got a pinwheel. Okay, and I'm not sure what happened there, but it just popped out. Okay, all right. So this is the video that came out. What I want you to do is I actually want you to listen to this video, okay? And I want you to think about like what sound was made. Now, okay, I should tell you first that Greg McMichael, the one who shot and killed Armor Aubrey, was already on the scene, okay? He called out to other people basically saying, hey, help me out here, blah, blah, blah. So it was almost like a kind of a gang tackle coming on here, okay? This guy, so, and you can't take the law in your own hands, is what I watched the video of the judge talking about this, right? And that's also part of it too, right? So, they're trying to make out these other people be witnesses to the scene, almost like they came upon it by accident. But you'll hear something in this video that'll show that more than Greg McMichael meant business here, okay? By the way, there he is jogging like, oops, I'm sorry. There he is jogging like I do in the neighborhood every day. Listen. I'll play it again. It was right there. The sound of a cocking of a gun. Okay. These people weren't witnesses. These people didn't just happen upon this. These people weren't there to just help. They meant business. They had a gun. In fact, this truck was used to prevent armored robbery from getting away. He basically, he was and he basically trapped him. They put it to the side to prevent him from getting out of the scene. So they were up to no good. Okay. That video came out and it became a much bigger story, a much wider investigation. And then what we started to see was this. These three people, not just Greg McMichael, but this is the guy who drove the truck you saw with the cocking of the gun, William Bryan. Felony murder all over the place, right? And they got convicted. Guilty, guilty, guilty all across the board. Okay. Trying to get all the information you need can save people's lives. Not necessarily with the megalomania story, but basically it can save people money. It can save people's lives. Okay. That's why we do what we do. We may not be like in this class to be a journalist or anything like that, which is fine. But you know, you're gonna be like facing matters where you have to like basically again come to the most obtainable version of the truth, whether you're dealing with like problems at the workplace or wherever, you know. And my daughter was just dealing with this actually. She was filling out her college application. She became an EMT, and she decided, and one of the things they wanted to write, one of the college essays they wanted to write about, was like, where does she come across like bias in the workplace and that sort of thing. And so she wrote about, she actually became an EMT, and she actually like wrote about how she heard some of the EMTs making sexist and misogynistic and racist remarks about some of the people they deal with, which was horrible. And basically like she kind of like was like, how could this like actually exist essentially in a place where it's supposed to be like you're supposed to be helping and serving people even for free, you know? So that's why we're doing this megalomania assignment. That's reporting, okay? That's getting down to the bottom of things, okay? And that's what I need you to do, okay? That story is due a week. I'll be posting this on Monday, a week from Monday. And I'm sorry, let me go to the courses. Like several things obviously that are due. I want to show you a little bit. I want to go back to the because also what's due on Monday is the I'm sorry, a week from Monday is actually that's the sorry, the 23rd is actually the megalomania. But due Monday the 16th is the rewrite for the parking, or sorry, the bus reaction assignment. And so let's actually don't have everything. Actually, I do actually. Okay, so and then there'll be a rewrite on the megalomania assignment. Don't worry about that. So we have that too. So this is due on the 16th, the rewrite. Everybody did, a lot of people did a really good job on that, by the way. I really appreciated the work on that. Developing good anecdotes. I sent you out a story, and I actually showed you a story and how the story can be developed from the discussion points that I gave you guys that you guys filled out, which was great. And then of course I sent around a video. I'm gonna like try to make sure that everybody saw that video because it was a very important video, and it shows how anecdotes can be developed. Now, anecdotes again, that was a big thing that I talked about, like the importance of paraphrasing, okay, and how I don't like long quotes. Okay, so sorry, let me just get this out of the way. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you're given like a long quote, okay. Man, I'm getting a lot of pinwheels today. And quotes, I'm not a fan of long quotes because they can be meandering, they could be like, all over the place, they can like be stream of consciousness. What you need to do is to take something like when somebody says something like, and you just don't like put quotes around it because they could be unreadable, okay? They could be, a lot of times people even skip over quotes. So like you basically say something like, the bus situation has become so bad, and once it broke down, sorry about this, on, see how it's kind of, it broke down on the highway, and we were stuck there for an hour, and it was terrible, and I missed class. See, that's kind of like a run on. That's how people come talk sometimes, he said. What you need to do is to take that, okay, and use your own words to show the drama and show the action. And you can even like, like sometimes like short sentences can almost like bring about drama into a certain story. So you say maybe like Fred Jones said he was stuck on the highway for an hour. He missed class. Isn't that written better and spoken better than this rambling thing right here? Okay. You can like use your own words to basically professionalize it and make it sound like more readable, almost like a book. And then what you do is you use the quotes, the direct quotes, to show color or emotion or something like that. So maybe like you just taken like that first part right there. The bus situation has become so bad, he said, like that. Isn't that much more readable? So I need people to paraphrase much more often than they do actually, like with the direct quotes. The direct quotes are only supposed to be there for color and emotion. You can actually write so many stories without direct quotes. They're not even completely necessary, but they do help humanize a story, that sort of thing. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually show you, in case you missed it, the video that I made that shows how to take those discussion points. And also this also is a way of controlling the message too, because the way the way the press release was written was basically another way. It's like you don't want to write out exactly the way the press release is written. You want to write the story in your own words and like and like have control over the way it's presented, especially the way it's focused. Okay. And actually, one of the things they talk about, like, a lot of times, actually, like, people hold press conferences, and actually, that's another way to control the message because what it does is it kind of, again, controls the questioning. But President Trump would do that all the time. You would have press conferences like in front of a helicopter, and there'd be a lot of noise. So the press had a hard time asking questions over the helicopter, that sort of thing. I pointed this out actually in my class. This is an interview, yes, me again, old times, back in 1985, and Bill Borden doing an interview with the governor. And it's interesting, like what we try to do is actually get control back because the governor is going to like do this story, Governor Kane at the time, where he thinks that like high school journalists are not going to like really come after him or attack him or that sort of thing. But we thought like, hey, you know what, we're probably going to go a little bit further than that. Now, we didn't really like interrupt him after that or like go really after him, like a professional reporter should. But we tried to shake things up a little bit and try to control our own message and not let him dictate it. Do you think that a lot of politicians do this because they think like children are not going to harm them or something like that? So let's watch this for a little bit.
Governor, yesterday, Congressman James Florio suggested that you are hiding from the state's problems. Do you feel this statement is accurate?
Oh, no, I don't think that's accurate at all. Well, it's a political season, and so you'll get a lot of political comment. But I think we've taken the state's problems and addressed them head on. And I think we're a better state because of it. We've tried to address problems that everybody knew existed for a long time, whether environmental protection, and we're now doing better than any other state in cleaning up our solid waste, whether it be the neglect of years and highways and higher education. We're addressing both those problems now for the first time and addressing them responsibly.
So he grabbed control back, and then he made New Jersey out to be like this, like the Brazilian rainforest. But a good reporter probably would maybe interrupt and say like, "Well, how come New Jersey still smells?" That sort of thing. So, so you got to like maintain control, man. All right. So I'm going to show you this, and then I'll come back at the end, kind of wind out the video, that sort of thing. Okay. This is again how to take the discussion points and turn them into a feature story. Okay.
Semester I typically do.
Whoops.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Okay, so this time of the semester I typically do this type of story where we do a reaction story again based on the idea that you've chosen. I want to give you an example how to handle this type of story. Now it is kind of what they would call a feature-ish kind of story, just in case you're wondering. Just see come across that word in the book or whatever. It's handled in a similar way, but we're actually not at the feature phase of our semester. This is actually more of a newsy story, so it has to be really kind of straighter. But what I want to do is I want to show you how it's done using the discussion points that I typically have for my remote classes, since we're not in class. But I mean, this also could apply to any like class that I have. So, all right. So what you want to typically do is, again, you want to kind of follow the structure that I've outlined for you. Starting with a lead, a straight lead, like we've talked about, and then of course start breaking down the lead into smaller components that back up the larger theme. Okay, so that's when you have your transitions. Okay, so a good outline may be to have like transition. I would say at least 3 different points to describe to back up your larger point. Now, this particular story is a reaction to the to the quality of the bus system at Rutgers University. So this is a story that goes a little bit more in depth, I would say. So what we do again, as I talked about in class, is add some anecdotes. That's a personal story within a story. And maybe a quote, not a long quote, okay? Because long quotes tend to be like clumsy the way they come out. They tend to be like, I don't know, a lot of people actually skip over them. A quote should be something like the easiest thing to read in the story. It should be like something like along the lines of, oh my God, or I can't believe that happened, or something emotional, something colorful. You don't necessarily have to have just one anecdote. You could have two, okay? But let's just stick with this pattern for once. And then what you do is you kind of repeat the pattern, anecdote, quote, rinse, repeat, anecdote, quote. Okay. All right. So the lead now should be based on the essentially the consensus opinion of what you have, okay? And going to the discussion point, what I'm seeing is essentially like a lot of negativity, which is understandable. Going back to when I went to school here in the 80s, nobody was fond of the buses. I mean, every once in a while, we do have mixed opinion, which is fine, okay? But let's just like take what we got here. And what we want to do is we want to find stuff from people that basically is kind of full. Like this is kind of full, this, something that has like anecdotal material, stuff that actually like has maybe Asia maybe like telling a little story within a story about the experience she's had or that sort of thing. Okay, one of the complaints this particular time is about the new bus app. So she talked about that. Then if people want to talk about the mixed feelings, we can talk about that. All right, so what we want to look for again is maybe some sort of personal experience. Let's see. Personally, I think both the bus app have been extraordinarily bad. Okay, so more about the app. Here's something interesting. This is Faith Wilson. Okay. All right. So let's take what she's got first. Okay. So, like I said, what we primarily have here is basically people who are not like too happy about what's going on with the bus system. So let's go back to our board here. Okay, so like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly this way. I've seen people have like variations on this, but basically this is a baseline lead for how the story should go. And it really, it's not about the bus system. It's about Rutgers students and how they feel about the bus students, okay? So Rutgers students in this case say they're not happy with the bus system. It seems to be that the majority opinions among the discussion points, okay? And, again, if you're an in-class student, it's the majority of the opinions that people you interview, that sort of thing. So we want to go a little bit further than we did like on our worksheets, maybe because this is like a big story. So you want to have an idea and an angle, okay? So this is the overall idea, and then but maybe you want to sharpen a little bit to kind of like reflect more specifically how people feel about it, and then but at the same time, I know it's like kind of contradictory to say this, but it's like specific but in general at the same time, saying the saying the transportation code doesn't work very well. Okay. All right. All right. So we have basically somebody saying here one of the first problems is that I wish that the system it's not the way it works. It's frightening to get off the bus at night and leaving and having long ways to walk to a dorm. I would much prefer having the bus drop me off closer. So basically, like this is one of the first complaints. One of the most common complaints I've always seen is you want to get into like one of the first points, and that is some students say they don't like the bus routes or the stops. Okay, so you want to kind of like break down the larger point into some smaller point. essentially these transitions become essentially reasons, okay, for why people feel the way they do, okay? And then you have Asia Barrett right here. I'm sorry, Faith Wilson, I apologize. All right, so then what you do is you take maybe some of the stuff she has and you put it right here. Okay, now what you really want to do is you don't want to rely on direct quote because people typically skip over the direct quotes. I don't know why this didn't go into the right point size, but let's just go with it. So anyway, so Faith Wilson, and you want to be a storyteller and use your own words to kind of express what they're saying because you are supposed to be the professional writer, and that means you're also supposed to be essentially an interpreter and basically write it. Because a lot of times when people talk, I mean, you want to have a conversational style, but a lot of times when people talk, it's when you actually put it down on paper, it's actually kind of clumsy. It's kind of like full with ums and ahs and all that sort of thing. So, you know, they kind of like maybe go back and forth. They don't always talk in a conversation like it's some sort of set speech or something like that. So what you want to do is you want to have it come as clear and concise, concisely as when it comes across to people as possible. So Faith Wilson, a Rutgers student. Let's go right to where she said, she says she wishes that it worked differently, essentially. Okay, so you look at what she says, and you can say it in fewer words and more easily. She says there have been moments where I wished this was not the way the system worked. Said she wished the system worked differently. Okay. As a young woman, she said it's frightening to get off the bus late. I mean, and I could relate to that because I remember being, I mean, in some ways, I remember being dropped off in like a bus stop in Bush one time, and it was just so isolated and cold, and it was just really kind of like scary, actually. So anyway, so it's frightening to get off the bus at night, and yeah, sometimes these bus stops are like a really long way from your dorm. It seems like, doesn't it? Just not enough of them, maybe. And jump off the bus and get off, trying to get off the bus at night, and then having to walk to her dorm. And then it basically there's another sense saying I would have wished that the bus could drop me off closer to my destination. So she's basically saying she wishes something like that. She wishes the stops were closer. And then what you could do is you go into here where it says, this is actually a little colorful right here, and this could be like a quote. It's quick, it's emotional, it's even a little bit colorful where they use maybe a little bit strong language. I feel the bus system fails vulnerable populations at RU. Okay. Go. Okay, so that's our first point right there. Okay. So that's our quote. Actually, I should say this actually should go right here. Oops, I'm sorry about that. All right. Okay. And another thing they talked about, I mean, I've heard people talk about like buses being too crowded, that sort of thing. That could be another point they could bring up. And, you know, I don't think that we've really gotten to that point here in this. I don't think a lot of people have talked about it in this particular discussion point. But again, they've talked about the app. So let's talk about the app as our next point. The app. We're doing this at a time when the bus app just started. And it's not working well. So we could take this. Okay. So this could be our second point. Okay. Okay, so others say the new bus app doesn't work. To introduce the next point, and then the anecdote come from Asia Barrett, right? So who was talking about right here? Yes. Okay. So let's see what Asia Barrett has to say. Okay. All right. So we can stick that in here. Actually, you know what? This way. Yeah, it's actually easier to read when it's smaller. Said, okay, so we get like a little bit more specific. Said she's had a lot of issues essentially with the new bus system in the app. Said she's had a lot of issues with the app. Okay, now let's see what her particular story is. Okay, there were times when she thought she had enough time to make class, but she was still late because it was crowded. So she relied on the app to prevent her from being late class and to avoid crowded buses. It didn't work, she said. And then because she goes on a long time here about it, right? But we don't need to say all that. We could just say it's like in a shorter, more succinct way. We could actually take this part right here. She said the other day I was 20 minutes late due to a bus driver taking a break. She was sitting on the bus like any other normal day. I was waiting for about 10 minutes, extremely frustrating and annoying. So maybe we could just take this part right here and say, the other day, she had to wait 20 minutes. We can say, the bus app also doesn't take breaks into account, she said. While the bus driver paused. Okay. And then we go down here. And actually, there's a good quote down here. This was extremely frustrating and annoying. Actually, and that's probably really good enough because it says, and it should tell you if it's going to stop and take a break. Okay, so you basically take all that and basically I shortened it into this. I took all that and it says Asia Barrett said she's had a lot of issues with the app. She relied on the app to prevent her from being late to class and to avoid crowded buses. It didn't work, she said. And actually, this is good writing right here. I mean, crediting myself, of course, I guess, but I don't mean to. But it's almost like a dramatic pause. You can use words to like create drama. You know, shorten sentence sometimes. It's almost like when you actually read it out loud. It didn't work. It's almost like coming from a script or something like that, where they have some sort of short sentence that just says like she had to do it, or you know, she had no choice, you know, or something like that. And then there's like an end, and then there's like a dramatic pause or something like that. And then you go to a new paragraph. The bus app. Another anecdote actually. The bus app also doesn't take into account breaks into account. The other day she had to wait 20 minutes while the bus driver paused or stopped. This was extremely frustrating and annoying. It's a good emotional quote. And there you go. All right, so that's how you basically can take those kinds of reactions and turn them into a story that's full, that basically can give the reader, and you don't have to go into any kind of background or anything like that, basically about, there's a bus system at Rutgers. Okay, well, I realize you probably had people tell you in your life, like, when you're writing to people, pretend that they're on Mars and they've never heard of it. Well, that's not necessarily true, because you're also trying to write to an audience, and the audience is supposed to kind of connect with your writing. And the audience actually is Rutgers students. So, they're going to know there's a bus system here. They know that they rely on it. And then the other thing is that other, people might be like looking at Rutgers to actually like send their children or whatever, parents, that sort of thing. They probably have some idea that there's a bus system there. They probably want to know a little bit more about it. So what does is provide some sort of an extension on what they've already heard about the bus system, the fact that it exists. That provides some sort of depth on how it works and if it works well. Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. And that's it. That's my lesson on doing a reaction story.
Okay, everybody. So yeah, that was me, and I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that. I'm stopping the share. Let me just get back to this. There we go. Okay. All right. So that's really it, actually. So that's what we got to do. And I think my screen is a little frozen. Yes. Anyway, so we have the rewrite. Great job overall on that, but we're really coming along, really progressing well. We also, I should let you know that by the way, there's extra credit for Journalism Day. If you attended, there's a sign up sheet for that. So I'll find out. That's on this Friday, actually. So I'm actually going to take my 2 in-person classes to it. So I don't know if I sent a notice to this class or not, but you should know that. Okay, you get like a half grade higher on an assignment if you go to that Journalism Day. Okay. All right, and of course, the Megalomania is due in a week. Please, if you haven't yet, please get in touch with Bill. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will be talking.